Look at that. We are now live on YouTube and also live on Facebook as well. So, g'day, guys. If you're watching this, the live recording of the Geocaching Downunder podcast, you're watching this live. A big warm welcome. Thank you. And also to those watching in the replay as well. So, there's a few replay viewers that will be watching this in the replay. Shortly, we will be actually starting the actual podcast itself. But before and after that, we would love to chat with you guys here online. So let me go through who's online, who I can see so far. Obviously, Fix It Fingers is here. He's online, but he's also in person as well. G'day, mate. How you going? You good there?
Hey, mate.
G'day. Also online on mostly on YouTube actually at the moment is Jasmine Hewitt, Team Hewitt, Lachlan Murphy. G'day, mate. How you going? Hubby and Mrs. is here. Well, actually, Jen from Hubby. Oh, there's Greg. He's online as well from Hubby and Mrs. Oh, and Tank Engine's here as well, Thomas. And he also says g'day from DTY73, Aquilus 1, and also obviously himself, Tank Engine. So he's watching as a group of 3. Now, James, Thomas, they normally watch it together, the podcast, and sometimes they even go out for dinner and watch it like where they're sitting down watching it for dinner as well at a pub and club.
Oh, yes, I've noticed as a viewer that they have those public shenanigan meetings.
They do. They do. Oh, and look who else has joined us. Of course, Andrew Bush, also known as Ash Bush, mate. G'day. Oh, and Tattooed Squared has just jumped in the house, and so has Dave Manning. Dave Manning is Smile Makers. He's all the way from Thermopolis over in the USA. Thermopolis is the city, and it is in Wyoming in USA. I managed to stay with Dave for overnight when I was over there 2 years ago now, not last year, 2 years ago. A great host. If anyone's going through Thermopolis, have a look up at Smile Makers. He's got the most geocaches in the city or the town, because I think he's the only one there that's geocaches. And he's a great host and is very, very happy to show you around. So Thermopolis, that is, and that is in Wyoming. Just as a side note, James, as well, Wyoming would be my most favorite state in the US. Did you know that?
No, I prefer Utah myself.
Really? I really enjoyed Wyoming in terms of the countryside and the way it looks. So yeah,
I have to confess I have actually been to Wyoming, so you could well be right. I've only done Nevada, Utah, California, and that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah. So how many of you? We'll discuss it in the podcast. We'll go further into that in the podcast. Gaz Kirsch is in the house as well. He says, "Happy New Year to everyone." And look what I can do. Look at this, Gaz Kirsch. Happy New Year to everyone. See, I can put it on the actual screen. It's so pretty, like. All right. With all that said and done, don't forget, guys, if you're watching this live now online, don't go anywhere after we finish the podcast, and we'll come back and have a personalized chat to you again straight after that. So with all that said and done, I've got to flick over the cross, get to the music going, and then we'll start the actual Geocaching Downunder podcast for episode number 17. And here we go. G'day, guys. Simo Shells here, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Geocaching Downunder podcast, recorded live on the 8th of January in 2020. Before we start, I'd like to send our thoughts and prayers to all those people, and especially the wildlife that has been affected by all the fires that are burning across this great country of ours. So let's all pray for some real rain. And that no more lives, that of humans or of animals, get lost in this sad state of affairs at the moment. But in saying that, I will say this, and that is, we have the support of the world. The amount of people that I've had from France, from the US, from Germany, that have contacted me asking how everything is over here in Australia has been fantastic. So we do have the support of the world, guys. So yes, let's hope and pray that all that gets all finished and all done finally. So anyway, all that said, now tonight we are chatting with a man who is well known in this state of New South Wales, very well known, in fact. He used to be the president of Geocaching New South Wales. He spends more time now, though, on his woodworking hobby. He has some great geo products for sale as well that we'll talk about tonight. Some call him James. but he's better known as Zalgariath. I even said that right this time, didn't I?
You did.
I did. G'day, mate. How are you going?
Very well, mate. And these days, kicking off as Fix It Fingers too. So a bit of an identity crisis going on. Just depends on who I'm talking to at the time.
Oh, that's right. So Fix It Fingers is your business name, isn't it?
Fix It Fingers is the business name. So yeah, but Zalgariath, most people will know me here usually as. And mate, we have had a little bit of rain here in Sydney. Some fairly decent rain past 24 hours, but unfortunately, it's not good on the forecast. There's more heat coming too. So yes, everyone do first and foremost be safe out there caching at the moment, because it's still probably not the best time to be going bush.
Exactly, and that's a really good point too to make, and that is, you know, if you're out there in the bush or whatever else, and we all love bushwalking and whatnot this time of the year and stuff. I mean, normally we used to worry about snakes, but now we're actually worried about bushflies and stuff. Do not put yourself in danger, people, just to find a cache. It is not worth it. So if there's a fire areas in your location, don't go out caching. Go somewhere else. You know. Plus, the other thing is, do not go around roadblocks. I have heard people have been going around roadblocks to go and find that elusive cache container or whatever. Yeah, it's not worth it, guys. So definitely do not do that. So anyway, all right, we're going to get straight into geocaching news and events. Now, I've got some new banners here for the actual live podcast and see how we go. So the first one we're going to head off to is the GeoVenture 2020. That's in Millicent in South Australia. GC82DAN in April 2020. And that's Golf Charlie 82 Delta Alpha November. Look at that phonetically and everything. After that one, we have WA Goes Big. And that's in Albany and Denmark in Western Australia. And that's on the 30th of May to the 1st of June in 2020. It doesn't have a GC code as yet. I haven't looked again. It hasn't been published at the moment. But think about that, that sort of time frame over that way. After that, we have the Oz Geomuster, and that'll be held in Kempsey in New South Wales from the 3rd to the 5th of July this year. GC8 G3HT Golf Charlie 8 Golf 3 Hotel Tango, and that's in Kempsey. After that, we have the New Zealand 2020 in Auckland, and that's in October. GC8 7777. What a great GC code that is. So GC8 7777 for the New Zealand mega. And then after that one, the last one for the year would be the Victorian mega in Whittlesea, and that's on the 14th and 15th of November in 2020. And that is GC8 EW40 Golf Charlie 8 Echo Whiskey 40. So make sure you put in your will attend, register, and plan your geocaching trips now. So meanwhile, he's back. His lighting has been confirmed. He's back. Mate, are you going to any of those events this year? What's happening with yourself?
Mate, yes. Did my first mega, would you believe it or not, as my 5,000th find, and pretty much 10-year anniversary down in Wollongong last year. I was a sponsor of the event for the Oz Geomuster, and I'm hoping to repeat that effort today. So there's not too many details out for the Kempsey one yet, but as soon as they do, in my business capacity, I'm going to hopefully come on firstly as a sponsor, secondly as a stall holder, and thirdly, of course, in person to go and find many, many boxes in between those times.
Exactly. So you're saying that you've been a geocacher for 10 years. You had 4,999 finds before your very first mega?
Yeah, I had to tailor the numbers. I had to hold back a little bit leading up to the mega to make sure I had the right numbers to swing that properly. But yes, I'd never managed to make a mega, generally because the Australian ones have been around Easter traditionally. And that's the time of year that wifey and I usually go to the Northern Hemisphere for our holidays. So I've just never been in the country.
Of course.
Really, I've been absent. And so it was great to get there. Winter, whose idea was that? That was brilliant.
Well, I won't mention who was part of that committee who made that decision. But anyway.
Looking forward to camping. Should be great fun.
Exactly. Actually, going quickly back to the bushfires here, we've got Mitchell John on Facebook, and his question is, who will replace all the caches in the bushfire area? Now, I know Mitchell John, he's a brand new geocacher, so he doesn't know too much about geocaching itself. And it's a very good question, Mitchell. And what it basically is that the COs, the people who own the caches to begin with, they're the ones that have to, firstly, obviously disable them, wait until you get the all clear from the fireys and the RFS. and then they can go in and check on their cache. If it needs replacing, it needs replacing, or they can archive it. So yeah, that's what happens with caches in bushfire areas. I actually had to replace several of mine that was in Sutherland 2 years ago. We had bushfires in Sutherland. I replaced several of mine there, and I've most recently had to replace one here up in the casino area. Recent bushfire in Whippery up here too. So yes, so that's what happens for that. So Mitchell, thank you for the question. Very, very good indeed. All right, we're going to get on with this show. We're going to do a little bit of music break, and then we're going to jump in and talk more to Mr. Zalgariath himself. So stand by. Okay, and welcome back. And yes, we are here with James, also known as Zalgariath, or Fix Fingers, depending on what capacity you're going to talk to him about. So, James, I'll call you James. I fondly know you as James, so that should be fine. So you said you started geocaching, what, 10, 13? How long ago was it now you actually started?
August 2009, looking back at my show notes. So it wasn't quite 10 years to the mega, but almost. Yeah.
Almost 10 years to the mega. That's wow. So, yeah, 2009, that's a fair way away. So how did you start? Did you start off with obviously a GPS device, not a phone like everyone else starts with now?
I did. So my mate who introduced me to the hobby discovered himself while he was doing the Japanese English teaching program over in Japan. So he found it over in Japan, and they're pretty nuts vacation over there. And he got back and goes, "Hey, we're at a barbecue." He goes, "You like bushwalks and geeky stuff, James? Have you heard of this geocaching thing?" And I hadn't. And we were in the Botanic Gardens. We went for a walk, and he sort of showed me what it was all about. I thought, that sounds great. And at the time, all I had access to, and probably for maybe 18 months, I think it was my first 1,000 finds, I used a TomTom 1XL in-car GPS.
Oh, wow.
All of my caching.
So one of the ones you actually stick to the windscreen of the car?
Just getting out of vogue these days because everyone uses their phone instead. But yeah, one of the in-car screen GPSs.
The old TomToms.
And there were all sorts of online ways you could hack them to import the GPX data and put icons on there as well. And you could even enter notes. It was very rudimentary, but it was functional. Battery life was, well, come to think of it, the battery life wasn't any worse than a modern mobile phone. But I remember distinctly. I had that for at least the first 1,000 finds before I got my first GPS-capable smartphone.
See, now you think about it this way: in the old days, the old days of geocaching as opposed to today, and that is like you had to do so much more work to actually go and find a cache back in those days. You know,
you had to be organised.
You have to be organised. You have
paper, reams of paper with me, just printed up, because the TomTom only had very, very limited, basically, coordinates.
Yeah, that's
an arrow is what you got. You drove to the closest spot, then I need to get. So if I wanted a hint, if I wanted description or notes or puzzles or multis, all of that, you needed physical printed paper.
Wow.
Not very environmentally friendly though.
I tell you, this day and age, in today's society, we get brand new caches now. We are blessed. I'm one of the blessed few. I've been caching now for 5 or 6 years. So yeah, and I've only ever cached with a phone. I don't know any other difference. So
I've never owned a real GPS unit. I went from the TomTom to smartphone caching. I had a Garmin, the old Garmin phone. It's brilliant, and now just modern smartphone. So I'm the same. Never had a real GPS.
Right. Very interesting indeed. Wow. Yeah, printing out notes and everything. That's a lot of work. So in your so you're up to around just over the 5,000 finds now, aren't you?
Yeah, just clicked on a little bit. Not as I said, not as active as I have been with life and other hobbies is clicking in, but still we'll talk a bit more about what I have been doing caching lately. But just about 5,100 at the moment. On geocaching.com, if I throw in my GCA, I'm close to 7,000.
Yes, I know. I've spoken to several GCA players, which I'm not one of. I appreciate a game that's different to ours, but that's okay. Um, so, which would then GC caches we're talking here? Which ones would be which cache? Do you have a favorite? Do you have one that's really sticks out to mind?
Dude, look, I've been very lucky for work and other reasons to have travelled quite a number of countries to go caching in. And there are a few highlights overseas, and America is an amazing place, as you'd probably agree, to go to. It's just nuts. But having said that, and I hope he doesn't turn too much of a shade of red, still to this day, the best geocache in the world that I have done is right here in Sydney.
In
by
the
a gentleman,
there we go.
Bruce, otherwise Calypso 62. A few people probably saw that coming. It's
Yeah.
called At the Governor's Pleasure, GC6HR8E. Starts right in the centre of Sydney in Hyde Park. It'll take you most of the day to do it.
Yes.
And it's just brilliant. Anyone who's done it will probably agree. I mean, it's got everything. From a traditional point of view, when you actually do manage to find the box, it is just a brilliant physical container.
It is
great. In and of itself, it is a half-day multi-cache with many, many stops along the way. And some of those stops are field puzzles. So you're chucking in puzzle elements of it too. And none of it is sort of like tedious or just because. Plus, there's history. It literally has all the things that you would look for in 10 different caches in one experience.
That's
just
right.
Brilliant. Can't we're very lucky to have that here in the city.
You do have to make sure you finish it before 5 p.m. as well.
Well, without too many spoilers, yes. That's what
it says.
You can do it over multiple days. You don't have to rush it. The only trouble is that it's probably not the best cache for tourists for that reason. It is complicated. It does help if you're a local and know your way around Sydney a bit. You have to really plan your whole day around that one box. If you were
exactly right. Exactly right. And as most geocaches, what we are like, and that is, we don't just do one multi. If we do a multi and it takes us on a large scale area, we grab every traditional in between the waypoints. We look for every other virtual or earth cache all in between the waypoints. So yeah, what would normally take someone, maybe an hour to do 10 waypoints can take the whole day. So
obviously I basically cleared out Sydney, the Sydney CBD, so I work there. So there's not any distractions left for me to go off it. But if you're a new person coming to Sydney, then it's really dense. Lots of options.
It is. Exactly. And speaking of Sydney as well, we'll touch on the new types of caches that have come out now with the lab caches. I
coming to those in a little bit.
If with the lab caches, you've got a few waypoints of lab caches in the middle of Sydney as well.
I do indeed. Are you throwing me up though now, Craig?
I know. There's no. I try. I don't do any real rhyme or order to the show notes. I'll go back and forth a little bit. So all depends on how the conversation goes. Trust me, it's a killer. You try and be in my head. So yeah, with the lab caches, I mean, you got 7 or 8 waypoints you've got in the lab.
I do, yeah. So speaking about big caching projects, this is by far the biggest project I've been involved in lately. And it was a lot of work. People might remember, if you've been around long enough, the old Where I Go. You don't see too many of them. There are a few. They're quite an old cache type, and they do still exist. But the reason they never really took off is because if you've ever tried to program one, they're incredibly complicated. I'm a fairly geeky, computer literate type person, and even I struggled when I attempted to make a Where I Go. So what I've really loved about these lab caches is that you need almost no computer skills, really. It's very, very basic. If you can create a normal geocache, you can create a lab cache.
Yeah, they've done a really good job with that framework of it.
And they do. And they're still changing. They're still improving. There's going to be lots of changes to them. And
of course.
Yeah, I was one of the lucky Sydney people who got offered to do one and have them out for this summer. Cool. My one is called Sydney's Operatic Operation. It starts at the Sydney Opera House, because where better are you going to do a adventure like in Sydney? And there are 8 waypoints. Mine will take about 2 hours if you don't get distracted. and I cliched it up massively. Basically, it's Sydney history. It is all of the highlights you would expect as an international or local tourist to see. It was a hell of a lot of work. I'm really proud of it, and I do hope that people really, really enjoy it if you get the chance when in town.
So there you go, guys. Again, another reason to come when you come to Sydney itself. There's a few lab caches now have been placed. Well, lab adventures they like to be called. A few lab adventures placed, adventure lab. Geocaching New South Wales have also got an adventure lab through Sydney, and that follows the old tank stream. Yeah, that follows the old tank stream. There used to be a multi that they've recreated as an adventure lab instead, which is really cool. I did that only the other 2 weeks ago. I think I did that one as well. Calypso's got one in the city. It's around the Rocks area, and I tell you, I didn't have enough time. His one. If you haven't done it yet, be sure to go into Sydney and just to do this lab adventure. It's basically a pub crawl, but it gives you but it gives you the history though of the actual Rocks area itself. And so you go from pub to pub to pub, all around the Rocks. And if I had the time, I'd be having one drink at each location, and just to celebrate each lab cache. But I didn't get the time.
That's a lot of lemonade. I haven't done it yet, but I have a sneaking suspicion that just like the GC New South Wales one is based on an old archive multi-court tank stream, I have a sneaking suspicion Calypso's one might be based on an old film cache called Pub Crawl, which sadly is no longer with. Brilliant. But he's put speaking to Bruce, he was obviously a bit cloak and daggers with it. He's put a fictional spin on it, hasn't he?
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those ones where, like it's mobs and mobsters and stuff. Like you go around and you look at different things.
Anything with Bruce's name on it's usually brilliant.
It is. Absolutely. All right, now we'll go. This is all your geocaching stuff done, AC. Now we go on to how did you actually go from geocaching into your woodworking? Now, like what happened? How did you actually get into woodworking? Have you always loved woodworking, or?
No, mate. I said I never did. You might have picked. I was a bit of a nerd at school, so I did chemistry and computers and things. I never did the practical subjects. I'm terrible at art, terrible at music. So that's my creative side has never really been expressed too much through any hobbies. This whole episode really is about joining hobbies, and it really is a nice example of how one thing leads to another. Obviously, one of my early passions as a teenager was camping, hiking, and bushwalking. And so from there, that hobby led into geocaching when it came on the scene and came onto my radar, no pun intended. And that, obviously took over my life like it does for a lot of people for a good number of years when I was traveling. It was the perfect companion. And a lot of people who then get into geocaching are afflicted with a disease called path tag-itis. And shiny things that
I'm one of
collecting.
Those. I'm one of those. I'll admit I have a path tag addiction and a geocoin addiction as well. Yes, I have those.
No, I avoided that one because I'm too tight and they were very expensive. So path tags helped being cheaper.
True, that's true.
And then finally, from path tags, or as anyone who collects path tags knows, they inevitably end up usually in a drawer or a box or a biscuit tin, and all these lovely shiny mementos of people that you've met and places you've gone are hidden away. And I wanted a way to display those in my garage downstairs. And rather conveniently, I had recently taken over sort of handyman duties here at the building where I live because I'm the strata manager here. And we just, there's so many little things in an old building that needed fixing that would have cost us a fortune to get it a proper contractor in, just small painting, stuff like that, really basics. So I started that, and then I went, if I've got these tools, I can solve my path tag problem, and I'm going to build something.
Oh, here we go. All right, for those of you who haven't got the visual of this, I'll have to actually describe it. What James is now holding is wow. It is a map of Australia, and it includes Tasmania as well. Look at that. It's roughly about, what's the size of that, James? What size do you reckon it is?
About 50 centimeters across. So from the Tassie to Cape York is probably about 40 centimeters, and east to west about 55 centimeters. I think it is.
So there you go. About 40 centimeters by 60 centimeters roughly is the size of Australia. Now, it does say GCA in the middle of it, but the best part about it is all the path tags are attached all throughout the entire country, including one in Tasmania as well. Look at that.
Well, mate, just a shout out to my Tassie friends. This
Yeah.
isn't actually an Australian map path tag holder. This is a Tasmanian path tag holder, because the way I had to do it was to make sure that the Tassie state tag had a safe home within the boundaries of Tasmania, and the rest of Australia just happened to be the right size after that. So that's how this design came about to be this size. I had to get the Tassie tag in. And yes, it says GCA because the eagle-eyed path tag collector will notice that these are basically all of
GCA.
GCA path tag support
They
their website. So this was the reason I got into woodworking. In short, I wanted to build something cool to display my tags, and it took a bit of practice to get to that point.
Yeah. Now I saw as well. Now again, those of you who are just listening, like on your way in the car, a lot of people listen to this sort of show in the car. James was holding it up, and he actually turned it sort of half upside down, like face down, and none of the path tags moved. Did you glue them in there? How do you actually? What happens with the path tags when? Yeah, look at that. You move them around.
They're all magnets. They're just on magnets, so I can take them off and stick them back on, spin them around. Like if I bashed it on the back, they'd fall off, but try not to do that. No, they'll hold it quite nicely. So yeah, there's a path tag size hole, millimeter deep, little magnet embedded in there, and that holds them quite nicely.
That is a brilliant idea. Only for the simple reason, you think about it, if you have your path tag collection all up and nice and it's full, but you get a better path tag, and you can actually swap them out in that case then, can't you, using the magnets? You know?
Oh yeah, totally. They just make it convenient way of storing things.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a question from YouTube from a Tank Engine, and the question is for you, Zal. It says, do you have an Australia to hold 200? How many does your one hold, that big Australia one?
That one there holds 81, which was just the random number that came to when I split up, because all the GCAs generally come in sets. So like I've got the state capital sets that geographically where the state capitals are in Australia, and then they have like the Australian birds. So I knew how many path tags I wanted, put out the capitals, and then just sort of grouped all the other subgroups together. I could have fit more on there if I really wanted to, but it was to hold.
That's a large one. That's a large one that fits 81. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not. 81 is your DT grid as well. Did you know that?
Wasn't planned that way, but when I sort of figured that out, it was a bit of a smile. So
yeah,
I don't know if anyone's ever made. I bet you someone has made a path tag set that has 81 different DTs on it.
It would. They would.
I reckon
we'll have to Google it. We'll have to Google it. A lot of people in the chat room now saying that yes, they do collect path tags. There's quite a few of them all in there having a chat in there saying yes, path tags are my favorite. Some have only got a couple of path tags. Others have got like a bundle of path tags. Now you were selling these path tag holders at the Oz Geomaster last year. Not that large ones, you like a smaller version. And again, just for those listening, James is now holding up a map of Australia, but in a one-handed style rather than two, quite a bit smaller. How many does that one hold, the smaller Australian? 12. Yep. 12 in that one. That's really nice. And then it's a rectangular square timber style. And how many does that one hold?
That one's got 15, but it also has a geocoin slot. So geocoins aren't magnetic, which was the good advantage of path tags. So you can't use magnets to hold geocoins, and also, they're all random spaces and sizes and shapes. Right. So geocoin holders are a little bit trickier to do, because you can't just cut circle holes. But this one will hold 3 to 4, depending on the size of them too. Yeah. So they're the last couple I've got left over.
Perfect. Now, I can actually personally vouch for these because I do have one of each. I have the small Australia, and I do have the rectangular one as well. I got 2 only because I'm greedy. And I can vouch for the rectangular one. It holds the geocoins in the top perfectly. And you can swap them out quite nicely as well. I do like the way you've done that with the slot. So basically, gravity and a bit of friction holds them in there. It's very, very clever indeed. Very clever. So you said you sell these now, do you? These path tag holders?
I do. So I do have a few. So I've never intended to. Obviously, the giant one was a project just for myself, and this was a bit embarrassing. It was like one of the very early things. Obviously, is why I started. I made something very, very similar to this. Was basically one of the first things I made out of wood, And just because it was path tags, when I think path tags, I think Roger W3. He is an absolute path tag nutter. Loves his shinies.
In Australia.
And yeah, oh, mate. And he's around the world, he's famous for his path tags.
Yeah.
So when I built the big one, my little practice one that I made, I gifted to Roger because he's given me so many tags over the years. I thought it would be a nice thing. Now, this is a bloke who has never really picked up a saw before. Very, very fresh woodworker. Sending the first thing I made to someone I know as a geocacher.
Yep.
Yeah, except who also may have spent 40 years as a professional cabinet maker and knows more about wood than I will ever achieve in my lifetime, and gave me some very friendly, constructive criticism. So that was kind of embarrassing. Turned out the best.
Yeah. Wow. Who was to know? Who was to know that he was actually a cabinet maker all these years? You see, you only know him.
Who would have thought?
Exactly. People have got lives outside of geocaching. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Now, if people
from there, people saw the small one and the big one on my social media, and I started getting requests going, could you make me one? How much would it be? Sort of all these things, and I was never planning on getting into woodworking to sell anything. I'm just doing it for the funsies. But the mega came around as an opportunity, and so that was my first foray into trying to make more than one of something. And to tell you what, it's hard work. It is really hard work, particularly for a learner, to make them. So it did happen. Probably will happen again this year for the mega, but it's a tough gig.
And for those who don't know either, you really did put yourself out there in terms of when you started your woodworking, or would you call it a career? I don't know, or your woodworking hobby. You've put it out there as well on social media in terms of YouTube. So you got a YouTube channel as well?
I did. So the YouTube channel is Fix It Fingers. Now, ostensibly, Fix It Fingers doesn't make a huge lot of sense for woodworking per se, because that's my business name. I said I'm the strata manager here, and I'm the handyman here, so I have all the ABN and all the limit stuff set up for that. But when I started woodworking, talking about crossing hobbies, as you could serve your lovely personal channel for geocaching, you would understand that once you pick up that, it becomes another hobby.
It does. It does. Absolutely does. it creates more time. Yep. It's a lot.
So much.
Yeah, you do. No, I've watched quite a few of yours, and you know what? I didn't know anything about woodworking, and I learnt a thing or two as well whilst watching. So, definitely.
I watched some of yours to learn the editing.
Exactly. Definitely get on to Fix It Fingers, guys, on YouTube. Have a look at that, and that's FIXIT Fingers as normal. Now, it sounds like a bit of a strange sort of name, but it's because of your last name, isn't it? It's because of your name, your real name.
Well, it does work. I said people sort of thought that I was breaking these as a handyman. The name was counterintuitive, but my surname is actually Finger, and I do get called Fingers, just for another name to throw out there. So everyone loves a little bit of alliteration. It works well. And look, if you want to know how these are made and see the amount of work that goes into them, particularly the big one, I do apologize for the quality of the videos. They're a little bit long and dry, but I document. That's what my channel's about. It's about documenting me learning woodworking and sharing that process with people. So hopefully over time the videos have gotten snappier and better edited and more interesting, and probably not a huge amount of interest to most geocachers, but you can see there are a few geocaching related videos on there.
There are. Now, also at the same time, when we come to talking about videos and whatnot as well, I tend to find that I actually quite enjoyed watching yours because it was real. Like, there's nothing fake about you. You're natural in front of the camera in terms of, you're basically describing what you're doing. That's all it is. It's not that hard to do. You're not putting on any fakeness whatsoever. So yeah, definitely, guys, if you are looking at having a look at these online, go on to Fix It Fingers on his YouTube channel. You've also got a website as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. That's more for legitimacy reasons than anything else. I said in my business, I have one client. That's my ability, and I don't really sort of work for too many other people. Yeah. But there is some little bits and pieces on the website. YouTube channel and the Facebook page are the ones where most people will find. The shop is on the Facebook page. So if you
Right.
are looking at, I do have a couple of these left over, and I can always make more for Kempsey. So they are on there.
That's the
And
rectangular
if
one.
anyone wants to reach out for custom orders, then for something special, woodworking or path tag related, then that's the best way to get me as well.
Perfect. So there you go, guys. If you want photos of these, if you're listening to this and want photos, jump onto Fix It Fingers on Facebook, and you'll see photos of these things. These path tag holders. Now, you said you only got the rectangular ones left. You don't have any of the Australia ones left, do you? Or?
No, I think I have 1 or 2 of these and 3 or 4 of these at the moment. So I might restock Kempsey, but I may not do the exact same thing. That I might make something different.
So you only got a couple of each left. So you guys get in quick before they go, by the looks of things. And that's pretty cool. Now, so going on then with your woodworking skills, and you've changed, like you've combined your 2 hobbies between geocaching and woodworking. Have you combined them to the point where you've created caches out of your woodworking skills? Please say yes. Please say yes.
Not yet. Oh. No. I said, funnily enough, the biggest crossover, and so we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves early with the Adventure Labs, is if you've done my Adventure Lab, you'll actually find that it is YouTube driven. In order to progress, there's 2 to 3 minute history videos about parts of Sydney. So if I hadn't gotten into woodworking and then gotten into YouTube video making through that, there's no way I could have then done this geocaching project. So it's come full circle, absolutely, to the Adventure Lab. So so that was great. But the woodworking is definitely, it's like anything. You can always find your interests ways to mesh in with each other if you so wish.
Yeah, exactly. So you said you got an idea for a real cache coming out with the woodworking, do you? Or you want to?
Sort of avoiding the question there just a little bit.
I did. If you don't want to reveal,
sorry, mate, I talked over you. Then what was
that?
No,
I was gonna say if you don't want to spoil it, you don't have to. You just
no. It's not a new idea by any chance. It has been done. I'm thinking of my own twist on it. It is the community library style cache.
Oh, yes. Every single library cache I've ever done has got favorite points on it too, which is pretty cool.
Well, they do. And they're well suited because it's an awfully convenient excuse to have a large box in the public eye and not have anyone suspect there's more than a bit of library borrowing going on.
Exactly, and that's the other thing. I created a cache out of timber. I wouldn't say I'm a woodworker, but I created a cache out of timber. And it was one of those ones where it was a gadget sort of style cache where you put your credit card or an actual plastic card in the slot, and then it flicked it open, so the doors swung open, and then you got the containers within. To find somewhere that wouldn't get muggled, that was incredibly difficult. And to the point where it was going really, really well. And then all of a sudden it got muggled. But when I say it got muggled in a very weird way. And that is, someone went there and they opened it all up and they just took out the entire content. So they took out all the actual tags, because it was a what do you call it? A geocoin sort of, hotel. So they took out all the geocoins, they took out all the actual TBs, and they took out the 3 containers that were in there. They even took the actual logbook and then just left it open. They didn't destroy it. They didn't do anything wrong with the actual container. They just took out all the bits and pieces out of the center. I don't know. I have a few of them on my watch list, and they've just disappeared. So, and it was in the middle of nowhere. It really was in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't like you could come across. But so that's
it does happen, and that's that's the unfortunate thing with custom-made caches like that. It can be very disheartening because they can take so long to make them and to find the right spot for them, and you think you've done everything right to protect them from the outside world, and then, well, a bushfire happens or a muggle happens, and you lose that very precious, unique container. And it's, it's time and money, and it's effort, so it's challenging. But one of my resolutions for this year, not that I usually hold to those sorts of things, is to get at least a couple of combined caches, woodwork geocaches, that are going to be very me, and sort of showcase what I've learned over the past couple of years.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the only other thing with mine as well is, and you can tell I wasn't a woodworker, and that is every single year a mouse would come in and make its own little nest in there and have little baby mice inside the actual inside the box. And I could not figure out a way in order to just sort of seal it up so the little fella could not get in. It was so funny. I got so many good logs on that because the mouse would jump out at people after they open it up, and it was hilarious. But they'd make their own little nest in there and whatnot as well. So, but anyway,
Mate, you might have missed your call. Obviously, it approves of your work.
Well, that's right. I mean, the mouse really enjoyed the house, so maybe I need to build mice hide like mouse houses. Mice houses. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I should build something like that rather than anything else. But no. So I disabled it and then archived it, and I've actually got the container with me here because I moved. You see, so yeah, I haven't done much else with it now because I do want to really try and seal it up so it doesn't happen again with the mice, or snakes and whatnot as well. So just to make sure. Now another question comes through from from YouTube. A very good question from Dan Truckermiller, also known as the Truck. He's from good old US of A in Pennsylvania. Yeah, Pennsylvania. He says most caches are built from reclaimed or leftover lumber or timber. Do you build your stuff out of leftover stuff, or do you you have new? How do you get your materials, basically?
Generally speaking, because wood in Australia, particularly hello to all my American friends who have a more reliable and affordable access to lots of different woods, it's expensive. It is, even plywood here is very, very expensive. For coming from a hobby like geocaching, which is ostensibly free, a few little expenses here and there, but very, very good value hobby for what you have to spend on it. Woodworking obviously is not, and if you buy all your wood, it can be very expensive very quickly. So I try not to ever spend money on wood if I can at all avoid it. Facebook Marketplace is great. Scabbing things off the side of the road during council collections is another fun thing to do.
Yeah,
the wifey doesn't really like that one too much. And I get friends and people now who know me, know that I am doing this, will offer me stuff. They're going, I'm throwing out a bed. Do you want the bed slats? Because bed slats are great. So short answer is yes, reclaimed is awesome. I love using it. It's a little bit, more of a pain in the bum, but I'm not building, any fine furniture. I don't have the skills for that. So the rustic look is good for me.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's very good for the environment as well. I mean, reclaimed or reusing something that's it was going to be chucked out and be put in landfill is much better.
Oh, totally. And there's stuff that's, it's good wood and it's often really expensive. Like people throw out things because it's old furniture, but old furniture was usually made from good wood. And if you were to go out and try and buy that, you'd be spending a fortune. So, you're saving your pocket, you're saving the environment, and you're getting character, you're getting a story behind what you're doing. The next project I actually have in mind is wood that I salvaged from my grandfather's shed. We lost him a few years ago, sadly, but while he was never a woodworker, he collected things over his life. And so now I've got this wood that is going to mean something to me that I can turn into a meaningful project. And again, recycling really, really old Australian hardwood. So it's a lovely sort of little aspect of the hobby.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And a great question. Thanks for that, Dan. Very, very good indeed. Yeah. So it's very good. So you were saying before, Zal, just to go back as well. Again, I'm just trying to promote here in regards to your sort of stuff. So are you contactable for personalized items yet, or you're not going that far, or what's happening there?
Yeah, look, I am, and the two things is, it's like with my YouTube channel, and anyone who watches it will see, particularly if you watch the early ones, I am making stuff up as I go along as a woodworker. I'm completely self-taught off YouTube. I'm not getting professional training, and I'm doing it for my enjoyment, as most people do for a hobby. Having said that, getting asked to do something by someone is just amazing. Like if they sort of trust you to do something, it's great. The reality is that I would never do this really for like a profit-driven thing terribly, because there's no way I could charge someone for my time that it would take to build a project. It's not possible. It takes far too long to be economical. So that's the sort of caveat that I put on anyone who approaches me to make them something. And I will do a massive shout out and apology here, example, to a gentleman known as OzFox, who did exactly that. he came up and said, "Can you make me this path tag holder out of Perspex?"
Yep.
Now, I've not really worked with Perspex before, but it machines similarly to wood. And what he asked for was very similar to, I'm now holding up the 15
rectangular one.
holder again.
Yep.
Rectangular one. He wanted 3 10 by 10s. Sounds very easy, but in fact, doing geometric perfect shapes is probably the hardest thing you could possibly try to do.
Of course.
And it's difficult. And I won't bore you with the details. Short answer is it's a couple of months on and I've not succeeded in doing that. And like, he's a lovely guy. Obviously, I didn't ask him for any money up front. And it's got to a point where I'm stalled on that project. So love to work for people if I can, but you have to be sort of realistic in what you can do.
Just to let you know, he's actually online watching now as we speak. OzFox he's saying he said he's on YouTube. He's on YouTube. He's saying he's trying to watch it on his phone whilst he's traveling the country road, but he's got poor reception. So there you go, OzFox. He's watching you. So lucky you did a public apology of sorts.
Public apology. So look, I am still, even a year on, a novice, and I warn everyone that I have to work within my capabilities. And I'm very happy to talk to anyone about what they would want, and I'll give them an honest and fairly quick appraisal of how long before I could deliver a product, because I do work full time. I do this in my spare time, and what a realistic cost is going to be. Normally, I'm just covering materials. I'm doing this for funsies. So it's so I'm happy to do it, but just be aware and be kind if you do that. I may or may not be able to help you based on those restrictions.
If that's the case, then probably best bet is to people just to keep up to date with your Facebook page and your social medias. And if they come along to places like, and keep an eye out and keep an ear out, I'm sure you're going to advertise when you're going to be attending different events, such as the Oz Geomuster in Kempsey. And you'll obviously advertise at that point in time, look, I'm going to do a run of these guys. If you want one, let me know. That's pretty much what it's going to be. That's going to be ideal for you, isn't it, really, I think?
Yeah, but this is, as I said, the episode is about crossing hobbies. And yes, I've sort of got a small financial aspect to the hobby, which helps pay for the hobby, but that's what it is. It's a very micro business. It's not sort of out there I'm not trying to shift my career into carpentry. I've got a professional career as a scientist, and that's what I do. It is amazing, isn't it, how all these different seemingly unrelated factors in your life can come together and sit happily side by side.
Absolutely. And again, as you're saying before, you can vouch for that in regards to your YouTube channel as well. Like, I started geocaching, and then my kids got me into the YouTube stuff, the vlogging. It wasn't my idea, it was my kids' idea. Then they grow up and leave, and you just keep on going. I then featured in a few podcasts from America, and I thought, you know what, Australia doesn't have a podcast, so that's why I created this podcast. You see, and again, we don't make any money out of this sort of stuff. It is just another hobby, but it is self-funded. And we'll go through that later on as well, because through Patreon, I've got a special announcement for Patreon. So yes. Anything else you wanted to discuss, etc., before we close off the show there, James?
Oh, man, I heard that there was once upon a time in Australia a very, very special cache that might have had something to do with a movie release, which sadly didn't last terribly long, but has got something of a resurrection lately.
Oh, you're talking about my lab adventure.
Oh, am I? Oh, well, thank you. Oh,
all right, we'll touch on that just quickly before we close out. Yes, I was one of the privileged ones to get a lab adventure offered to me as well. Mine was just 5 waypoints, and it is featured in Byron Bay on the east coast. Now, I will say this: there is a most easterly cache by who owns that? I can't think of their names now. They're the most found people in Australia, like Liz and Bruce. I should have known that off my heart. So Liz and Bruce own the most easterly cache on the mainland in Australia until now. So one of my lab adventures is actually more east than that one. See, because when you do lab adventures, as you are aware, you don't have to abide by the 161 rule, the 161 meter rule. So therefore, then, I can be 100 meters out, almost on the ocean itself, with this particular part of my lab adventure. So it talks about the beaches of Byron Bay predominantly, but one of the waypoints, if you like, or one of the labs, as people like to call them as well, is at exactly the same coordinates as the ape cache in Australia. A lot of people don't realise that we did have that ape cache in Australia as well. There's only 2 left in the world now. One's in the good old US of A, and I think one's down in Brazil. And we had one here in Australia in Byron Bay. It cannot be replaced in any way, shape, or form because it is national park there now. But there is a virtual there too. A virtual has popped up from Wayno. Wayno's put a virtual there to replicate the ape cache. So if you go to this ones in Byron Bay, do the lab adventure at the same waypoint, exactly, you get a lab cache and you get a virtual cache all in one. So you get two for one deal there. So yeah, so I'm very proud of that one in Byron Bay. And I too, just like yourself, did the video version. So you go to a waypoint, you click the video, and it's you don't see me though. I'm not actually on there. I'm just my voice. And again, it's about the history of the beaches of Byron Bay. So it's pretty cool. And again, a little bit. It's got one of them there is about the swimming between the red and yellow flags. A bit of safety message there for the international visitors. So yeah, I did that one as well. So it's pretty cool. So I know what you mean about the lab adventures. Pretty cool.
Oh, low, they're good fun.
Yeah. So if anyone's up near Byron Bay, jump in and grab it. Now with the lab adventures, just quickly on them as well. Do you have like a mystery final for yours or like a bonus?
Not yet.
Because I've noticed a few bonuses, like a bonus cache, and a lot of them, especially the ones in ACT, like Kitty Catch and all them, they've got bonus mystery caches. Well, mine is a bonus letterbox cache. See, so it's different again. So if you do the lab, you get the lab, you get the virtual, you can get traditionals, mysteries, and then you can get an actual letterbox cache as well at the same time. So that's pretty cool. Yes. Thank you for reminding me about that. I forgot about that one. You got to self-promote these your lab adventures, don't you? I mean, when you think about it, though, my lab adventure, it's been out now since before Christmas. It's been found 4 times. Yours was found like 4 times on the one day.
Yeah, it has been now, but even so, look, to be honest, I expected it to be. I'm no shame in it. I designed it to be very tourist friendly and very, very cliched Sydney centric. Opera House, Harbour Bridge, all of that. And I put it down to the fact, and I hope this is something they change with the labs in the future, that you have to know it's there. If you don't know it's there and you're not opening the lab app, then you won't know it's there. And I would love to see Groundspeak put a lab adventure icon just filterable on the main geocaching map in the app. So when you get off your cruise ship at Circular Quay, you open it up and you see all the caches around and you go, hey, there's a lab there. I now know to open my lab app.
That's right.
So that I can go and do those. I'd love to start with my number one improvement on there. I've had about a dozen times, and I would have honestly expected it to have more. So if you are in Sydney, make sure you go and check out the 3 labs now in the CBD.
That's a fantastic idea. Now, I know there's some reviewers that listen to this podcast as well, one of which is watching as we speak. Ooh. There you go, Mr. Reviewer, over in good old NZ. There's one information to take back to Groundspeak or HQ, and that is if we can try and get an icon placed on the GC map that there's a lab adventure in the area, just so people can go, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's a good idea, and open up the lab adventure app. That's a great idea, mate. I like that idea.
They may be working to them. Lab adventures are obviously in their very early stages, and they're getting better all the time. A lot of the bugs in the early app are gone. So if you ever tried one before and just got frustrated, uninstall and reinstall the app and give it another go, because they have improved it a lot. I'm sure there'll be lots of cool things coming out in the near future for lab adventures.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely, guys. Now, if you have any questions about lab adventures or anything else as well, you can always hit us up here at the Geocaching Downunder at gmail.com, geocachingdownunder@gmail.com. And if I don't know the answer, if we don't know the answer at all, we'll point you in a direction to someone who does. So very good. All right, James. Well, we're gonna finish it off now. So just put a little bit of music first before we finish it off, and then we'll say the goodbyes from there. Thanks for joining me, mate. I'll get this all sorted up now for you, so stand by. Okay, And thank you so much for joining us tonight. James, your YouTube channel, just to reiterate as well, you've got a YouTube channel, Facebook page, and also a website. Fix It Fingers it is.
Instagram.
That's the one, isn't it? And your store's on the Facebook page and everything as well. So that's pretty cool.
Fix It Fingers on YouTube. Fix It Fingers on Instagram is actually where I share a lot of it, and the store is on the Facebook page. So if anyone has an interest in learning woodworking, you can come share my pain, and there is a geocaching twist rather regularly popping up on the Fix It Fingers as well.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Now, also, when we talk about sort of mixing hobbies and it costing us money, it does cost money to do this to this Patreon. I'm getting mixed up again to do this podcast. So don't forget, if you want to be one of the selected few in the know with everything about the actual Geocaching Down Under podcast, join us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Geocaching Down Under. And levels start from just as low as $1 a month, and you can be part of the little special group that we have. Now, next month on the show, and this isn't even in the show notes because this happened like literally, an hour ago. Next week on the show, we will have someone, and not just me, but someone else here from Geocaching New South Wales. And we're going to be talking about everything related to Geocaching New South Wales as the group, what they're up to. Exactly. You're proudly wearing that shirt too. Fantastic to see. There might be a couple joining us next month from Geocaching in New South Wales. So we look forward to that. So thanks to everyone who jumped into the live YouTube broadcast tonight. And remember, we record this live in the first week of every single month. So make sure you follow all the social media pages so you don't miss out on anything of the GeoChat. Have any further questions or comments, please drop us a line at geocachingdownunder@gmail.com. And let me finish this off with some music as well. And this podcast can be downloaded on any of your favorite podcast apps. And they include Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and Spotify as well. So that brings us to the end of episode number 17 of the Geocaching Down Under podcast. I'm C. Marshall, and thank you so much to Zalgariath. Thank you very much, mate. Thanks for joining.
Happy caching, everyone. Caching. Happy caching.
So from us, we're over and out. And we are off the podcast. And now we're just talking to the live viewers and also the replay viewers if they want to stick by. We're going to have a little chat now in the chat room. Let me see. Dan Trucken-Miller, PCE is here. I didn't see you join up PCE. Sorry about that. That would have been first for you to know about the next month's GeoChat. Kitty Catch is right there as well. Elizabeth Shaw, g'day. You're Shawfoot 24 from Phillip Island. There you go. Julie is here as well, of course. Lachlan Murphy, Andrew Bush, Penny McCartney, g'day. Thank you very much for the chatting, guys. Oh, Elizabeth Kirk is in the house as well. Good to see. Does anyone have any other further questions of Mr. Fix It Fingers James here at all, or any other comments you'd like to make before we wrap up the tonight's show? What was I going to say?
I've got one here from Gary Tattersall, Tattoo Squared, who deserves a shout out for another adventure lab, Port Macquarie, I believe that would be, wouldn't it?
Yes, he does. Oh, there it is there. And he says as well that his adventure lab has a bonus in Port Macquarie as well, like a bonus cache mystery. But here we go. Andrew Bush says straight away, you can have a bonus, but you don't actually have to. So you don't have to put a bonus.
Mine doesn't. Mine are just eight virtual spots. You don't need to find anything physical. And that makes it easier because if you do, word to the wise, if you do get an adventure lab and you want to put the bonus in, or you're actually placing something in the real world that's going to be a clue for one of your labs, like you would a normal multi, you have to abide by the 161 rule. So it's one of the first questions the adventure lab will ask you. It says, are you doing anything physical? And if you click no, then your life is easy. But if you click yes, then you are going to have to play by the regular rules of 161. So you're aware of that.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Now, Green Cordial. Oh, g'day, Green Cordial. I'm going to have to do a shout out. I haven't seen you on here before. Green Cordial is a Patreon. A big shout out to Green Cordial. A cool Patreon you are. Thank you very much for joining up. When is the next podcast? I like to put them in my calendar. Well, I haven't confirmed the date as yet, but I'm going to be pushing for the 5th of February, Wednesday night, as always, on the 5th of February. I'll be pushing for that. So I try and do the podcast in the first week of every single month, and hopefully on the Wednesday night, depending upon my guests. So yeah, Green Cordial, big shout out to you. Actually, Green Cordial, while I've got you here as well on a podcast, podcast. I'm getting all mixed up. A Patreon note. There's all the P's. A Patreon note. Patreons are going to be having a little separate little like podcast just for Patreons only, an interactive podcast is one as well. So that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be doing a post on Patreon about that tomorrow, and let you all know a little bit more about it. So there you go, Green Cordial. That's something that's going to be quite big, happening sometimes in the next few weeks, and it's an interactive podcast with all Patreons only. So there you go. Yes,
I've got a good one from Tank Engine, who's asked if I have an Australia to hold 200 tags, and that was fun in its own. And the answer to that is possibly I could, but then of course Gary Tattersall had to go one up and say Darkside Dan mentioned today he has 8,000 path tags. I don't think I have enough wood for that. 8,000. That would be a lot of wood.
See, Darkside Dan. He's from ACT, and really enough said.
That's nuts.
So Geocaching New South Wales actually hosted an event today, and it was for geocaching for beginners. So we were trying to pull muggles into geocaching in Sydney. But we had it as an event. Now, it is all about for beginners and whatnot as well. So I think there was maybe one or two real geocachers there, one of which was Darkside Dan. He came all the way up from ACT to Sydney just for the event. Just for the event. That's crazy. That's crazy. Meanwhile, Kitty Catch as well. Kitty Catch in the chat room. Hey, Craig, have you thought about doing a show about the Aussie contingent heading to Seattle this year? Yes, I have, and yes, there will be. That show will be happening, I dare say, in March. I'm looking at, so a bit closer to the August, and to try and get I'll do a big shout out for when I want people, like a list of people who are going and what dates they're going and whatnot as well. I mean, when I get my end sorted too, so I've got to get my stuff sorted. So there you
go. Craig, just before I go, because I've just had a thought, and I'm going to have to head off in a second.
You're right.
If anyone who is on the show tonight or watches this video contacts me via Facebook and would like one of these little Australian ones, I'll knock $10 off the regular price.
There you go. Only for the live viewers, though. Just for the live viewers. Look at that.
The viewers on here, anyone who happens to have caught that in the live view now is hung around this long. If anyone is interested, I've got
and how many
of those left.
How many you got? 2. So that's the first 2 people.
Yeah, I'll say I've only got a couple left. So 2. I'll do it twice for 2 different people, or for the one person if they want 2 different ones. So one off people. Just to say thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. I reckon limit 1 per person. So therefore, then they can't. One per person. You only have for the first 2 to email you now.
No, Facebook. Just go straight on the Facebook
page.
Let's do some shameless self-promotion. Subscribe to my YouTube channel first, and go to Facebook.
There you go. Subscribe to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as well, and jump on there. And the first 2 people,
$10 off the pass tag holder.
$10 off. So how much are they normally? Those ones?
I honestly don't remember. I think these ones are 40, and I think these ones might have been 35. So whichever one you like. $10
off. There you go, guys. It's just for the live people watching it live, not for anyone in the replay, because they would be gone by that time. So awesome, mate. Let me just flick through here. Nearly finished the chat. Julie says Kitty Catch and her are also going to Mingo Madness as well. That is crazy, because that's like a month before the events over there. Kitty Catch also says Grim Raider has won an adventure lab and will be putting out by the 1st of March. And he's also won a community event today as well. Oh, go Grim Raider. Good job, mate. Good job. Let me see. Lachlan says the 161-meter rule should be like 100 meters. Lachlan, it's all about feet and inches, actually. So because it's an American game, so it's around figured in their feet and inches. That's why it's 161. Penny McCartney has just been awarded an Adventure Lab as well, trying to think of something good to do, and thought of a bonus cash as well to finish it. Penny, if you need any ideas or you got any questions, by all means, hit us up on the on the email. I've got a few ideas in mind. Also, if you need any help with any of yours, let me see way all the way through. Yeah, there you go. See, I told you he's got the answers to everything. Andrew Bush answers everything. 161 meters equals 1/10 of a mile. I told you it's in the Imperial because that's where the game came from, not from GCA. What else have we got here? Oh, Thomas Schultz asked as well if he puts it online, do we get a knife set too, along with the $10 off and a free set of steak knives?
I can't work metal. Don't do metal. Only wood.
No, he's not a metal worker. He's not a metal worker, so that's pretty cool. Elizabeth Shaw just says as well that she won a community cash as well, like a community event. That's pretty cool. Awesome to see these community events. We'll talk about more, I think, next month, I dare say, as they roll out more and more and more of them for the 2020 anniversary. I'll actually put that in the show notes as well for next month. We're going to discuss all the new attributes that can come up when you attend one of these new events. So you'll have to go to one of those new events, James, surely.
I think I have to try.
I'm
not a souvenir hunter. I'm not a souvenir hunter, but I do like the special icons.
It's an icon more than a souvenir. It's not about.
I like the icons. I don't chase souvenirs. I do chase the special icons. I will get an 8-cache one day.
Yeah, one day, mate, one day. And of course, as always, Andrew Bush with the answers to everything says there's more events going to be awarded next month. Yes, there are. So if you missed out, like myself, this month, they're going to be awarding more and more events every single month for this year, I do believe. So if there's none in your area coming up soon, they start as well on I think it's the 2nd of May they start, I heard today. So they can't publish them until the 2nd of May. Because that's officially when geocaching began. That gives us a bit more of an idea. So that's how it is. And of course, Julie, ACT got more events. Of course they do. ACT get everything. ACT got all those adventure labs before anyone else did. They go until October. See, again, look at this. Andrew Bush, more information. They go from May, the 2nd of May, till about October. So there you go. I told you, he's got the answers to everything, this man. I love it. It's great. It's great. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Zalgariath, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great night tonight. Really good podcast. Really enjoyed it. And thank you for everyone who joined in the live chat, and also if you're still hanging around in the replay. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming, guys, and thanks, James.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Catch you next month.
Bye.
Bye-bye.